Hello everyone, this is Mighty Scott here with another episode of Feed the Beast Revelation, and this is episode 30. And let's first talk about the updates. Alright, the first update I would like to talk about is the two reactors. I just want to briefly go over this contraption and how this works. I've upgraded to Neptunium, so now we're on high enriched Neptunium 236 oxide, so it's oxidized or oxided, and we can see that we get a base power of that's actually not it. This is LEN. I wanted to switch over to that. So the HEN-236. All right, so we have oxidized version, and it's got a base power of 504. And a base heat of 270. As you can see, I have a 12,474 RF per tick, 333% efficiency, and a 99,000 heat per tick. So this contraption here for this reactor is exactly to keep it from going over too much power and for going too high in the heat. I'm using the comparator for the heat into this system here, and it's just doing a comparison of threshold of 6, so when it gets to halfway point, it doesn't go higher than that. And I'm using a logic gate. I think I mentioned this in the previous episode. So I have a AND gate with all three of these have to be positive in order for it to produce a redstone signal. And so that's the only one that's on, and everyone else is off. So I did that because I wanted to have a control to turn it off and on manually if I needed to. But this can remain on, and then these two would control it, these two. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I've expanded the, let me show you the inside, which is just, most of it's empty. I just needed to have a bigger casing to give a bigger barrier for the heat that it produces, which is a lot. And the thorium reactor for breeding, I expanded it out and I cut it up to 72 cells now at 302% efficiency, so I just made it more for breeding. And the result of that is 18,000 RF per tick. So if I were to make this a little bit bigger, I would be at the 25,000 mark for this this device here. So with that, I did want to show you how fast this thing goes, and so in preparation, I actually made a flux capacitor resonant. So I upgraded my flux capacitor to the highest tier, which holds 75 million RF. So let me show you this thing. I'm going to charge it in here, and it's going to drain the power out of both of these. This thing will kick on. So this thing's still charging it fast, but you can see this thing is definitely ticking down at a pretty good rate. So it's a breeder reactor now. It's more breeding than it is efficiency, and I do have a couple of I have a lot of heat to work with now. I can actually put more cells if I can fit them in there, and we would still have a quicker reaction time. So this thing is actually not charging up as fast as I thought it would. So I think the limitation is actually on this block. This thing is keeping it full. So yeah, limitations on this block in receiving, how much it can receive from the cell. So you'll see it's just ticking down, and that's the breeder reactor. It does a pretty good job at producing RF per tick, and it also does a pretty good job at getting me depleted thorium. The next thing I wanted to talk about is I actually did make a viaduct network between the 3 floors. I still have my elevators, but this actually will take me between all 3 floors without using the elevators because the elevators are in a different room. So I can go from my reactor room to my immersive engineering room where we did the garden closes, all the way down to the nuclear room where the nuclear production is nuclear craft production occurs. And we can go down to that. This is the how I get there. And there we go. We're in the nuclear craft room. And that is pretty much it for that. Okay, on to the episode. I definitely wanted to make an episode on AE2 add-ons, I guess you'd call them. So we have our applied energistics, and we also have our applied energistics add-ons like AE2 stuff, as well as the wireless crafting terminal, which is this. These are all a part of AE2. So I wanted to make an episode on that because as I was doing things, I realized that I could save a lot of time of back and forth in these episodes if I just made these crafting terminal, and I decided to make additional automation with that as well. So I want to group this up into another part of the AE2 series that we can see how to do some of these things and the benefits of some of these things. So that's what this episode will be about, and the first thing we'll do is tackle the wireless crafting. Alright, the first thing we're going to look at is the wireless crafting terminal, and that is this block right here. And we can build this, pretty easy to build. It requires the AE2 wireless terminal, which comes from this recipe here. This is the energy storage system with AE2, and this is the ME terminal, and then we have the wireless stuff. So most of the wireless stuff requires the wireless receiver, which is iron, quartz fiber, and then this Fluix pearl, and that's the recipe for that. Everything we've seen so far. So you put all this together and you get the wireless crafting terminal. And of course you can read this nifty information panel about how that works. And you can charge it with an energetic infuser if you wanted to. I will use my newly minted flux capacitor to charge it up. So I actually already have one built that I wanted to test out before, and I'm glad I did. There are some quirks I found with this, and this kind of goes along with some of the problems I've been having in general with baubles. So with the wireless crafting card, I will go over how it works now, and then we will get into the quirks after that. Alright, so we have our wireless crafting terminal crafted. And now I want to show you a couple of things about it. Once you have it, it's going to be in this unlinked state. As you see, it says link status unlinked, and it will not have any energy. So you can energize this with your flux capacitor, or you can energize it through the power cells like I told you before. You can just drop it into this system here, and it'll charge it up, and you can have a fully charged up crafting terminal. Then we need to link it. So in order to link it, you will need this security terminal. So you build this. It is not too bad. I think we've seen everything that it offers. Yeah, the 16K ME storage component, diamond, and then cables and iron. Then of course we have this ME chest, which has got familiar components inside of it. You build that, drop it down, and we get this window here. And this has a lot of uses for it, but I've just built it just for this particular device. So this has to be networked to a controller, an ME controller, and I use these Fluix, these dense cables for more channels, and that's what these are for. So you get your security terminal, then you take your wireless crafting terminal and drop it into this little slot here, and it will link. So now it says linked. It was already linked before, but you can relink it if you wanted to. And it'll link to the network that this controller is connected to. So everything that this controller that we have here is connected to, it'll have access to as far as storage. And even the crafting stuff, we can actually access the crafting stuff. So we right click on it, and there it goes. It's there. We have all of our stuff, and we can access it anywhere in the base. Now, this interface has got a lot of stuff going on here, but you're probably familiar with some of it already. I did want to point out that I do have the Infinity Booster card. This card comes with, I got it from killing the dragon. This dropped from the dragon. I'm not sure how else you would get it. It may come from some other source. I don't believe it's craftable. Let's take a look at that. I don't want to say something untrue. Let's see if we can craft it. Okay, it is craftable with 2 quantum entangled singularities. This requires some of the more advanced features of applied energistics. Quantum entangles, yeah, so you have to drop these 1 singularity, and so singularities actually come from, can I look at singularities? Yeah. They come from the matter condenser by feeding it resources. And then you get the singularities, and you get the singularities, yeah, it requires 256,000 items. Which a lot of people will achieve that by feeding it cobblestone from random sources. Like they can do an auto cobble generator and feed it cobblestone, or some other method, but you can essentially make a matter condenser and feed it enough to make singularities. Then you follow this process where you drop a singularity in an ender dust and cause an explosion within range of atoms. So that would require the, I think it's the mini TNT. Is that in here? Let's see, TNT. Yes, this is a tiny TNT. Okay. You can you drop this down, then drop these 2 items down, singularity and ender dust. Put a tiny TNT down, and there you go. You have your quantum entangled singularities. So it's a process. I got mine from the dragon. I'll just put it that way. That's the easiest, probably easiest method to get this is to kill the dragon and hope it drops. Or it may also drop from the wither. That's another possibility of dropping. Or you may be able to find it in a chest. So all those methods are valid ways to get that particular card. The benefits of this card. Let's go and see the benefits of this card. In order to do that, let's go to our other dimension. You probably already have guessed that this Infinity Booster card will be accessible in other dimensions. So there we go. We can get our resources from anywhere we want. That's what makes this mod amazing. So that is the gist of what you can do with this mod. It's a crafting table that's portable, and it gives us access to our stuff that we need when we need it. That's why I wanted to make this before I move on to other episodes, because this will be handy for me during the episodes that I'm creating. Another thing is I want to show you is that this thing, when it's open, will use power. And this will drain power. It'll drain power from this because it's in my hand. And so as it's open, we can see the power drain. Not too bad. It's decent power drain. But we are across dimensions and we are using this thing. So amazing addition. I would just recommend you get this and get the Infinity Booster card. Okay, the last thing I wanted to bring up with this in mind, the difference between this and the other crafting terminals and wireless terminals is that this has a magnet card, and the magnet card is pretty easy to make. And it's this card right here. It's just iron blocks, and then redstone block, and lapis block, annihilation plane, and then one of the advanced cards. That's it. What it does, I actually have one, magnet card. You can put it into your terminal, and you get an interface where you can drop things in here. So we can say, hey, let's drop this in here, and we can now pick up things And the whole point of this, the whole point of this is to pick up things off the ground, and instead of going into your inventory, it goes into the ME system. I have not had good luck with this particular card, so I don't use it. You may have better luck than I have. And typically when I pick up an item that's on this list from my inventory, I throw it out there and I pick it up. I tend to have issues where I'm not able to open up the terminal anymore, and stuff like that. It's a little buggy for me. I'm not sure if that's something I'm doing wrong, or if that's something that needs to be addressed in a future version. But you can whitelist things, you can blacklist things. There is a mode, so you start off with the activated mode, which means it shouldn't work, nothing should happen. Then you can turn on where extra items are added to inventory, so instead of, if it's not in the whitelist, it goes into your inventory versus going into ME system. Then there's one that's extra item left on ground. So it kind of just controls how your inventory works essentially for you. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of this particular card. I definitely like the Infinity Booster card. This one, not so much. So I just made it just to demonstrate for you how it works and to show you the features in case you would like to use that. So that is it for the wireless crafting terminal. Alright, so the next thing we want to go over is the AE2 Stuff mod. And this mod adds in a bunch of quality of life improvements to applied energistics. So you just type in your AE2 stuff and you get to see the blocks that are there. I've already made the pattern encoder, and I think I've already shown you how that works. Which is this device right here. You can import recipes from JEI or NEI into the pattern encoder and make patterns. You just pull them out of there, and there you go, you have your pattern. So that is how that block works. The next block on the list is the crystal growth chamber. So I've dug up my crystal growth chambers that I've had here and made a new one, and actually made this block, which requires 6 growth accelerators and oak chest and a hopper. And then you get this crystal growth chamber block. Put it down and it connects to your ME system. And so what this does is it speeds up the or actually lets you grow the crystals. So look up the applied energistics. Yeah. So we have the seeds that you can make, and they turn into the pure versions of the crystals that you make with applied energistics. So here they are, the pure Certus quartz crystal, and then the pure Fluus crystal, and the pure nether quartz crystal. It lets you grow these inside of this device. I will grab some seeds, which I have to make. I think we just take some dust, and then we can combine that with sand, and we can make some seeds. So you do get a 2-for-1, so you can take 1 dust and 1 sand, and you get 2 seeds. So 1 Certus quartz turned into 2 seeds. And then you throw them in here, and you can see the percentage go up, and it grows at a decent rate. Now I do want to show you that. Let's take this out now. I do have 2 acceleration cards we throw in there. And now let's see the rate. That's a much faster rate of growth. And so you can fill this thing up with crystals, seeds, and then grow a bunch of them at one time, and they're done. And this growth chamber will actually allow you to pipe things in and out, so you can actually set up an automated system of getting these growth the crystals from this block. And so it's another quality of life improvement. All right, so the next one is the advanced inscriber, and it requires an inscriber and 2 hoppers, iron, and engineering processors. So let's see if we can make that. All right, so now we have our next block. This can go on your network. There you go. And it's essentially a automated version of this right here. Though these have specific sides you can pipe stuff into and out of. This one lets you place items in here, and then you can lock them. So you can say, whatever I put in here, that will only take up that slot. So let's just, an example would be if I wanted to make, alright, so let's say I wanted to make the silicone part of the printed silicone. And I can get my template, put it in here, and okay, and I can drop my silicone in there. There it goes. It's using a animation animated silicone. So this block is great in the fact that you can pipe things in and out of any side, and you can lock the templates down so that if it's locked, nothing will pipe out of this thing. So it'll only pipe out if it's unlocked. So you may not want to have things going into certain blocks. So you can keep them locked down, and they won't be piped out automatically. So it's just a way to keep you from removing the wrong components. Okay, and the next 2 items on the list are a part of the same system. We have the wireless connector, and we have the wireless setup kit. So I already have a wireless connector made, which is here. And you actually need 2 of these, so let's bring this up. Wireless connector, and it requires a lot of stuff, as you can see. And then let's just make this. There we go. We have 2 of them now. Now we need to make our wireless setup kit, which requires a networking tool, which is the wrench, and then do I have all this stuff on me? Let's see. Just need the wrench. So the wrench I have in my backpack. There it is. And throw that in there. There we go. While I'm on the topic of the network tool that we just made, I do want to show you that, like, what this is capable of doing in case you are needing more information. But you can click on any block in the network, and let's say like this one, and it gives you a energy usage rating per tick, and also a max power. You know, this is just network details essentially. But you can see everything connected to the network, and you can actually have an idea of how much your network is draining on the power. So I just wanted to point that out while you are, in case you're wondering. There is another tool that we'll get to in a second that will help you do the same thing essentially. So we have our network tool. We need to now build the next part, which is the this here. So we need to make another wireless receiver. And there we go. That should be it for this. There we go with our wireless connector. I'm gonna grab a cable, and you know what? I'm just gonna grab this right here. Let's just demonstrate this very simply. Sit down our wireless connector, and I would recommend you set it next to either one of these heavy cables, dense cables, or your actual controller. The reason why I say that is because this device will be able to transport all the channels that you needed to transport if it's connected to this. If it's connected to one of these regular cables, you're only limited to the amount of channels this can run on, which I think this was one channel. So you want to place it at least next to your ME controller, or place it next to a dense cable which is connected to your ME controller. Then you get the maximum amount of channels that you can pump through this thing. So let's just put it right here, and then let's just drop this on the end of it. There we go. So these aren't connected by wires, right? And I think you kind of get what the purpose of this is that you can click on this, and you get this nice little connection. It shows you which one's connected to. So now I should be able to click on my network here, and be able to, actually I could probably just use this. So I should be able to just open this up and actually use this. And we can make some more. Let's throw those in our inventory and craft them up. There we go. So if this was connected to the network, this didn't work. It should work. There we go. If it wasn't connected to the network, this would not work. So this is pretty much how this works. You can extend your AE2 network beyond the beyond cables, essentially. So this could be in a different floor, and this could be on a separate floor. Instead of running cables up and down between them, you can then just run these two together, and they will connect together. This does use a power. Our next item here, which is this network visualization tool. And so this is a pretty neat little device. I need to make more of these. I think I need to have some more dust. I'm gonna go craft this device up, and then I will come back to you when it's done. Okay, I also wanted to point out that if you need some more flux crystals, you can actually use this crystal growth chamber and drop in your ingredients, and there you go. You're now making flux crystals instead of having to drop them in water. So just another use for this chamber. Okay, I have my network visualization tool crafted, and you pretty much click on any block in a network, such as this block. Shift, yeah, there we go. So you shift right click, and it shows you all the connected components, even the channels. I think those are channels, so let's get channel 4 here, channel 6, 1. I think those are channels. I'm not 100% sure if those are channels or not, but you do get all the components to a network. So you can see visually where your network starts and where it stops, and it even does the wireless stuff too. So you can see the wireless connection points to here. So if you have stuff upstairs, you can see stuff like that. So it's a neat device, definitely handy in troubleshooting certain things. So we can see the channels. With this device, we can see the nodes, which are the connected components, and then you can also, so you see there's different modes. So if you have it in your hand, you just shift and then scroll the mouse wheel, and you can switch the modes. So that's nodes, that's channels, so you can see all the channels that are associated with this network. And then we have show channels and nodes. Then we have show P2P links. So if we had a P2P network, we could see that. Then we have everything. So we can see everything, and that's connected to the network. I did want to point out that we do have a AE toggle bus right here. And so you see how it doesn't connect on to the rest of the network, even though it's all connected physically? Well, turn off toggle bus on, and there we go. So it will show connected devices, not just because they're physically connected, but they're connected and powered through the network. So if you have a toggle bus somewhere, which we have here, that we used for our turning off and on our crystal growth accelerators, it will then also stop at that point if the network is disconnected, based on the toggle bus being off. So there's also, you can see this system here, which is all connected, and it's a whole different network there. We can also see this segment as well, because it goes up to the toggle bus. So that's essentially how this device works. You can change the modes, you can physically see the connection points and how things are interconnected throughout your network. Alright, so the next thing I wanted to bring up with the AE2 system here, the ME system, is there may be a scenario where you want to have a certain amount of items on hand. Like, for instance, let's just say we want to have crafting tables on hand. So we have 2 in there right now. I'm going to remove this. We have a crafting recipe. It's already stored in one of these blocks here, right there. There it is. And what we wanted to do is we want to say, okay, I want to have 2 on hand all the time. So how do we do that? How do we have 2 all the time on hand at all times? Well, what you can do is you can have a ME interface, right? So let's make another ME interface. Put it down. It's on the network, and what we want to do now is we want to say, okay, I want to have 2 on hand at all times. So let's just throw it in here. And so now there's a demand for 2. This ME interface is saying, I have a request for 2 items. I want this should say 2 down here, right? So if I were to put these 2 back in the system, it would automatically be pumped out into this interface, okay? And if I remove them and just throw them back in the system, it will constantly want 2 of them to be in here. Okay, so that's part 1. Part 2 is, what if I don't have 2 to throw back in there? Okay, so we wanted to craft them now. So we want them to be automatically crafted by the ME system using the pattern we provided it, and we want to have it fulfilled and then display here. So what you do is you have a crafting card, and we put our crafting card in there, and we make sure we have wood in here. Okay, so we have spruce wood planks to fulfill that recipe. So now I have a crafting card in here, and what the crafting card does is it says, if it's not fulfillable by the system, let's craft it and make it fulfillable. As long as we have the recipe, we can then craft them to fulfill the demand. So I want 2 of them now, and there you go. It automatically crafted 2 of them using this this pattern here, throwing them into this, right here, and crafted them. So that's yeah, I crafted 2 more. See, so it's always going to craft them. It'll always be crafted based on the system there. So let's get all of them out. All right. So let's just say, okay, I want to have 6 of them in there now, and there it goes. It goes crafting them. It creates the patterns. But here's the thing: if I'm looking through my ME system, if I'm gone somewhere and I have my wireless crafting terminal with me, and I want to say, okay, I want to get my crafting tables. I'll get crafting table. They're not displayed here, so they're in the system. They've been fulfilled, but they're not being displayed in the system. So that becomes a problem here, right? So what we need to do now is we want to say, okay, I want to now see the items in this interface. And how this works, because I have run into bugs with using the storage bus along with the interface, where it becomes an infinite loop of crafting. So let's test it out, and if it doesn't work, then you'll know. If it does work, then they've fixed bugs that have happened in previous versions of this game. So we have the 6 in there right now. It's fulfilled that order. We want to have access to it in here, which we don't see it now. It just says just craft more, right? So what we needed to do is we need to tie a ME storage bus back into the system. I need another cable. Actually, I can just, yeah, I'll just give me a cable. And now if we look in the system, we should see our crafting tables that are in the interface, right? Okay, so without going back into this system here, I pull out 3, and we now have 6, right? I pull out 3 more, we now have 6. So whenever I pull them out, it keeps them on demand. If I throw more in there, it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter. It'll say, okay, you have more than the required amount to fill that. If I pull them out of here, it'll use the inventory that's in here to fulfill this requirement. But if I run out of the ones in the inventory, because this is looking at the inventory in the ME interface, it is then now using the ME interface to craft them, you know, to request to craft them. So in short, all you need to do is just have an ME interface and a storage bus. So storage bus is showing what's in the ME interface, and the ME interface is requesting a craftable recipe. And you have to make sure that the card is there, okay? So that is essentially how the system works. All right, last thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to show off one more feature about the ME interface that and auto crafting in general. So we can have a pulverizer for demonstration purposes. And does it have power? Yeah, it has power. I can just keep it powered with my plus capacitor. And what I want to do is I want to now, let's say there's special recipes that you can use with the pulverizer. You know, for instance, you can get some blaze rods, and you want to make blaze powder. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to make a recipe for that, a pattern, which I did already. And in order to make this pattern, since it's not a crafting recipe, it's a processing one, you have to make a pattern terminal. This is the pattern terminal, and so if I were to put a just one blaze rod, you get 2 blaze powder. But if you look at the recipe, we can look at pulverizer, and we can see that 1 blaze rod equals 4 blaze powder. So instead of the 1 for 2, you have to make it say 1 for 4. In order to do that, you have to actually change it to the mode to processing pattern. So then you can say, okay, 1 equals 4, just like that. So that's how you make the processing patterns that aren't actual craftable recipes. So we have our encoded pattern, and what we want to do now is we want to get a ME interface. And your pulverizer, I find it just really easy to just set the pulverizer to auto input and output out of the same port for this particular thing. And so what it's going to happen is it's going to pull from the ME interface above it, and it's going to automatically send it back to the ME interface, which will be connected to the network. So I'm going to use our handy dandy wireless connector. And let's just click on that, get it connected to the network. There we go. It's connected now. And now we should be able to throw in our pattern. So we should now be able to craft this using our pulverizer. So let's check out our terminal and look up blaze. We have some in there, but let's get rid of that. See, we now have a craftable recipe for blaze. So I want to say I want to craft 1. It'll actually craft 4, but I just wanted to show you that you put 1 in there and you get 4. Start. There you go. It drops it in there. And then there you go. It went back in. So it's all in the system. So it's going directly out of the system and back into the system using one interface. And so you could essentially replace this cabling system right here with ME interfaces, and they're not too bad in power. So that's just another feature that you can do with automating your processing. So now whenever I need a blaze powder, it will be crafted through this system right here. And of course, you can do the same thing where if you wanted to have an automated, an amount of blaze powder on hand at all times, you can set up another ME interface that has it piped in using the system that we just showed you earlier. And this pretty much covers everything you'd probably use AE2 for. So that is it. I thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and I hope you learned something this episode. Thanks again, and bye.